students. Today I am going to talk about IBDP business management. As we see that exams are around the corner, and so is our, the last minute preparation, revision, everything. Before I talk about today's session, I just want to ask you that which particular topic you people, kind of like the most or fear the most. If you can just quickly send your responses in the chat. Everybody. Which topic do you like the most if I talk about business management? I think they can chat, right? They can put it on chat. Yeah. I'm waiting for the responses. Okay, somebody, Arushi has said that she likes HR the most. All right. Nishika likes finance. Very good. We'll just take one or two more responses. Okay, Riz also likes finance, operations. Okay. Jivansh loves the subject overall. Investment appraisal is a little tough, but marketing and finance is something I love. How many of you like kind of fear finance? Like you just see finance as the most difficult topic? Anybody, if you can just raise your hand. Okay. All right. Perfect. Now, having said this, let us start with the topic. I'm Prachi and I teach IBDP business management and I also mark the papers as well. So I would be able to share my advice with you all. Let's see how it's work out together. And we should try to score a perfect 7 in our examinations. So today's session, I am going to talk about the finance portion itself. I saw somebody, they have written in the chat they love finance. Somebody said they don't like finance, they have a fear of it. So we'll just try to overcome that fear. If you love it, we will just try to inculcate more of it. So let's quickly start with this. Okay. Now, today's session, if I talk about, we are just going to look into the finance, which can make you more confident with the finance questions. And what we are going to do in today's session, we will understand key finance concepts clearly and simply. We will also try to look into to avoid the common calculation and interpretation. Whatever, when there is analysis of the ratios and everything, we tend to make mistakes in analyzing them. We will see into that how to work onto that. We will also decode the profitability, liquidity, and efficiency ratios. And we will master the proven structure for a 10-mark paper 2 question. 10-mark paper 2 question, we are looking forward for that, which is, of course, uh, let's see how to start it. Okay. First, we start with the profit and loss account. Are you all very confident with profit and loss? Students, you can just raise up your hands. Are you all confident with P&L account? Okay. All right. Okay, fine. Now, if I talk about profit and loss account, which is also known as income statement, what I want to tell you that before you prepare for P&L account, few points to note, which is very important, which I'm pretty sure you might have not, taken care of those things, which I'm going to talk about today. If you ever try to look up your BM guide, right? I'm just writing it over BM guide which is 2024, right? BM Guide 2024. This is the latest which has been issued by the IB. Try to pick up this guide. Towards the end, you will see some formats, very important. there are some formats. I'm pretty sure you must be using different textbooks. Some must be following the Paul Hong, some must be using some other writer textbook. But I want to tell you they all have formats. But what IB accepts is the format which they have given under their BM guide. This is something which I have seen in my students as well, that we are not much aware of it. So please remember, you have to just go through the format which is given in the BM guide towards the end. So when we enter the exam hall, we get a formula booklet. Just above the formula booklet in the BM guide, you will see that there are some formats given. I'll just share it with you people as well. Just give me a minute. I'll just share what format I'm talking about and how you're supposed to learn through it. Just a second. So I'm sharing my screen again with you all. I believe you all can see my screen. So I'm talking about this guide. When you look at this guide towards the end, I said these are the formulae, of course, that you will get when we enter for exams. I'm talking about these formats. These are the IB prescribed formats. Students, please remember, this is very important to just follow these formats and ignore all other formats which you have been doing till now. And when we are doing these formats, again, a note of caution, you will see that we have two types of entities. One is the profit making entity and other one is the non-profit entity. So of course format remains the same, but there are changes in the few words which you should remember. If I talk about non-profit entity, we use the word surplus in place of profit. And if I talk about a profit entity, of course, we write gross profit. This is very important to understand. So you will find these formats. Again, I'm repeating in our IBDPBM guide 2024. These formats, just look at how you need to make it for a profit organization and how it should go for a non-profit organization. We have income statement, same goes for balance sheet, and same goes for the budgets as well. Having said this, I'll just quickly take you back to the slides. If you have any questions, you can start putting it on chat. Towards the end, we are going to take up those. Yes, of course, the relevant ones. Okay. And I'll again take you through the slide. Just a second. Okay, so as I said that we should remember the formats. Further, I have just mentioned, something in this, that please remember the negative figures, expenses or a net loss are denoted within brackets, not a minus sign. This is a very common thing which we should remember, that instead of writing a negative sign, we will denote everything through a bracket. And of course, whenever you do your paper or anything, please remember to do it this way. Now let's start with first thing I'm taking up is a sales revenue. So if I ask what is sales revenue, if you can just quickly put it on chat, what is your understanding about sales revenue? Income earned by sales. Okay. One more response quickly. The income generated by sales of good or service. All right, perfect. Now over here, as see, we have just mentioned that the sales revenue, it shows income and expenditure over a specific period, usually a year, to calculate profit or loss. So remember, as you said that, okay, sales revenue is income earned by a business. Again, in this, we have to remember that many times in the exam, they will give us just the per unit sale or the selling price. Now, whenever selling price is given, we need to calculate the sales revenue. And how we calculate the sales revenue? Simple, by doing quantity into selling price. Once we do this, we get the sales revenue. So yes, sales revenue is the total income. I'll just not go with this. It just, considers the total income of a business. Total income of a business earned over a period of time. So this is what sales revenue. See, sales revenue is very important because this is the sales revenue which will decide our profits for future, right? Okay, whenever we do the sales revenue, of course, we calculate the gross profit and the net profit with the help of the sales revenue. If I talk about gross profit simply sales revenue minus cost of sales. Now, the thing is that what is cost of sales? So, cost of sales basically is the cost of production. So, cost of sales is also known as cost of production. Many times it will be given in the paper, good enough, good to go. If not given, then we have to calculate it. For calculating cost of sales or cost of production, we use a simple formula which says opening stock plus purchases and minus closing stock. This is how we calculate the cost of sales or cost of goods sold if it is not given in the question. So these are the few things which we should remember when we are doing the income statement. And then, of course, gross profit is when we deduct expenses from the gross profit, we get net profit, or we also refer to as profit before interest and tax. And then we have the retained profit, which is the surplus kept in the business after dividends and the taxes are paid. So this is about the P&L account. If you have any questions, you can type it on the text box. Okay. Now, moving further, we will quickly look into a practice question. Let's see how we work on it. So, the question over here given is, the question says, Savvy Style Limited generated total revenue of 524 and $780,000 in 2024. Total costs were $375,330, which included rent of $25,700 and marketing expenses of $37,200. Calculate the gross profit for Savvy Style Limited in 2024. Now, how we will do this? If you remember, I earlier told you, or it is written in the previous slide as well, that gross profit is equal to, it says that the gross profit, it is equal to sales revenue minus COGS or cost of sales. Now, in this case, if I look at the sales revenue, which is given as 524,780, as you could see, this is the sales revenue given, right? So, of course, I'll just write up my sales revenue. As you could see, 524,780. And from this, I have to minus the COGS, cost of goods sold. So in this case, if you see, they have given the expenses, total cost, which is 375,330. And this includes rent and marketing expenses. Now, rent and marketing expenses, these are not the direct costs. These are the expenses which are subtracted from the gross profit in order to get the net profit. So what we will do, as it is already included in this, we are going to subtract these two things and then we will get our COGS. So 37330 minus 25700 plus 37200. So what we are doing, we are subtracting the expenses and then we get the cost of goods sold. And once I subtract COGS from the sales revenue, I'll get my gross profit. And it says about 2 marks for correct answer with working, very important. Working, this does carry mark. So students, please remember to show your working in there whenever you're doing any financial calculation. Many times we just tend to write the final answer. The final answer won't fetch you full marks. You may only get 1 mark. But if there is a proper working, you may get full marks. Otherwise, if let's say my answer is wrong, but my working is correct, in that case, I can get 1 mark. But if I have just written the answer and my, working, I have not shown, then I will lose out all my marks. So this is how it goes. Another point which you should remember when I am doing my calculations or anything, please remember to show the unit. Unit, of course, in this case, if whatever currency I'm using, let's say I'm using dollar, I will show dollar. I'm using INR, I will show the rupee symbol. Or if I'm using pounds, euros, whatever, please remember to write that. And if you are, let's say, cutting down the similar zeros, please try to show that your answer is in thousands, okay? Or your answer is in million, whatever. So this is very important. These are the few things which we should remember while we are writing our answers, because just by missing out the dollar sign, my 1 mark would be cut. Again, I'm telling you this from everything from the examiner's perspective. This is what I have seen, that as examiners, we have done all this in the past, okay? All right. If you have any doubt, please write your queries, and then after that, we will move on to the next slide. Any query? I can't see anything on the chat. Students, please see. Quickly, if you have anything, any doubt, please type it out here. Fine. I can't see any query, so which means everybody is good to go. Let's move on further to the next slide. Okay. Now, next, I'm going to pick up the balance sheet, structure, adjustments, whatever we have in this. Now, when I talk about balance sheet, remember, balance sheet is also known as a statement of financial position, SOFP. This is another name for balance sheet. Yes, mostly we'll be using only balance sheet, but remember we also call it as SOFP, right? Now we will see, of course, the structure and the adjustments to it. Okay. So again, if I talk about its format, for a format, we will simply follow our BM guide, no other format. If I tell you this is the format, please don't believe me, follow what BM guide says. Now, what I have seen in the students that they face problem while remembering the format. Now, I can just give you a quick tip that how you can remember the format. Hope it works with you people. So let's say if I talk about the balance sheet format, remember whenever I'm anything, it must always have a heading. Without heading, I'm not going to write my financial statements, be it balance sheet, be it profit and loss account, be it cash flow or budgets, whatever I'm doing, heading is must. This is first rule which we should remember whenever we are doing our financial formats. Second important thing, of course, the format, as I said, it is a problem for many of the students. What I suggest, try to remember it with, any acronym or something like that, how you can do that. So how I have remembered the formats, I'm going to talk about myself first. So whenever I'm making balance sheet, I have just remembered it like this, that it starts with NCA, non-current assets, then we have CA, then we have TA. So non-current assets, current assets, and total assets. These are the three things which are there for the assets. When it comes to the liabilities, remember, first we have CL, not non-current liabilities. First we have current liabilities, then we have CL, which is non-current liabilities, and then we have TL. See, this is how I have remembered. Okay, my first part is assets, NCA, CA, TA. My second part is liabilities, CL, NCL, and TL. This is how I have remembered the things. A experience I'm sharing with you people. And then after that, we have the third. After this, I will just quickly calculate the net assets. I can call it as NA. Once my NA is done, I come to the equity part, which of course contains my share capital and retained earnings. That's it. And once I learn this, I learn the format itself. Yes. Once I learn the format, I learn everything, but we have to understand that what all comes under NCA, what all comes under CA. So NCA is all about your fixed assets minus depreciation. CA is current assets, which is just three, which is debtors, cash, and stock. And of course, total assets is NCA plus CA. So these are the things which we should remember when we are doing the balance sheet. Then further, if you look into this, that what is the purpose of a balance sheet? As profit and loss account shows the total profit of any period, the balance sheet actually gives us the net wealth of a business at one moment of time. What is the net wealth of a business? Which means what all business owns, what all business owes. Now over here, if you could see what we own, this is non-current, long-term, and current, short-term, liquid, what all you own. So whatever you have bought, purchased, everything will be a part of assets. O means whatever loans you have taken from the third parties, that is liability. And the golden rule says that the net assets equals to total equity. Net assets is what? Net assets I will get when I will do total assets minus total liabilities. As I mentioned over here, when I deduct this, I'll get net assets, and total equity is share capital plus retained earnings. Okay, now I'm getting a query that what is a share capital? I'm going to take up what is share capital. We all know that we have various forms of business organizations, which is sole trader, companies. For explaining share capital, I will just start up with a very simple example. Now, the golden rule, as you could see, says net assets equals to total equity. I will write one more golden rule, which says that the total assets it is equal to total liabilities plus capital. Okay, this is one more capital rule other than this. This is another capital rule which I have written over here, that total assets equals to total liabilities minus capital. Now, total assets, we know that whatever the business owns are the assets. Liabilities, we have seen that whatever business owes are the liabilities. Now we will look into that what is capital. See, now remember, as I said, we have different forms of business organization. Let's say we have a sole trader. Okay. Now, sole trader, whenever sole trader starts a business, he brings in some money into the business. So actually the capital is, in very simple terms, capital is owner's money into the business. Owner's money into the business. For example, let's say I want to start a business and I have 100,000 rupees with me. So this 100,000 rupees with which I am starting the business will be my capital because it is owner's money. And then I have taken a loan from the bank, let's say 50,000, that will be my liability. And what all I purchase with all these money, which is 50,000 plus 10,000, 60,000, that will be my asset. So again, repeating, capital is the owner's money which he puts into the business. When I talk about share capital, similarly, when your business is actually a private limited company or a limited company, and when then the shareholders, whatever money they put into the business, it is known as share capital. Is the doubt clear? Good. Thank you, ma'am. All right. And somebody has written equity. So I think equity we already discussed that equity has two things in it. One is the share capital and other is the retained earning or retained profit. Retained profit is the thing which we have calculated in P&L that comes to the balance sheet. Okay. Of course, there are a lot of details to it, but just in order to explain you how it works. Perfect. Now I'm just going on to the next slide. I believe no issues still here. I believe so. If you have, please, you can start putting it down in the chat box. I will be looking into them as and when I check the inbox. So, okay. Now, again, we have a practice integration question. I'm not going to show you the answer. I just want you people to work on it. The question says, Brightspace Limited has the following data for 2024. Inventory is 56,840. Inventory is also known as a stock, and stock is current asset. Please remember. Then we have non-current assets, which is 412,750. We have a cash, bank loan, and trade receivables, trade payables, accrued expenses. Calculate the net assets. So we have to calculate the net assets. Over here, I just want to tell you people that please ignore the accrued expenses. Please ignore this. This we are not considering. I'm so sorry for this. We are not considering accrued expenses. Rest all the things we are considering. And please, based on that, please calculate the net assets. Everybody. Just ignore accrued expenses. We are not doing that. Hurry up. I'm waiting for the answers. Ignore accrued expenses. That is not you have to consider. Consider all other things. I'm just writing it here for your convenience that net asset is net assets. It is equal to total assets minus total liabilities. If you remember the format which I explained quickly. I have not seen any answer. It's not that much difficult that we are taking this much time. Come on, we have limited time for our paper also. Hurry up, young ladies and gentlemen, fast. I'll just wait for 2 more minutes and then I'm going to discuss the answer. Okay, I got one answer. I'm waiting for others to quickly tell the answer. Okay, I think I got one more. Okay, let us. I have got two answers. Now I'm going to see that what could be the correct answer. Everybody has to work with me on this answer. So as I said, net assets equals to TA minus TL. In this case, total assets. What we mean by total assets? Total assets mean that we have to take up the non-current assets plus the current assets. In this case, if you see, we have non-current assets, which is 412750. This we have to add inventory, which is 56840. We have to add cash, which is 82420. And then we have to add in this trade receivables. This is also asset. Trade receivables are the debtors. So we have to add this. So we have to add 56840 plus 412750 plus 82420 plus 3765. And then we have to subtract from this a bank loan, which is our liability, plus trade payables, again the liability. And whatever answer we get is your final answer. So I'm getting answer as 391625379055. Okay. Not looking into what answer is there. I will just calculate it on my calculator and let's see what's the correct answer. So we have taken up 4-1. Just a minute. It is 412750 plus 82420. Then we have plus 56840 plus 82420. 412-750-82420-56840. Then we have cash. All right. And from this, we will subtract. Okay, so the correct answer is 391,625. Those who have got this answer, that's the correct answer. Again, I'm repeating 391,625 is the correct answer. All right, moving further. And I'm assuming that we know how to calculate the net assets now. Okay. All right. Now, very important point which talks about profit versus cash flow. Again, trust me, this is a very common problem which I have seen with most of us, that we don't know the difference between the profit and the cash flow. And I have seen whenever we are making cash flow, we write the word profit, and there all we all, kind of we all just mess up with everything. Remember, profit and cash flow are entirely different things. As you could see, they are talking about that profit is sales revenue minus total cost, includes credit sales where cash hasn't arrived yet. For example, let's say I asked Jivansh to sell his textbook to me today. Now, Jivansh is selling his textbook, let's say for 2000 to me today. He bought this book for 1800 and selling it to me for 2000, right? I have taken this textbook today, but I have not paid Jivansh anything. So, which means Jivansh has earned a profit of 200, but he has not received any cash. He will receive cash when I pay to him actually. So, this is what they talk about. So, you can still earn profit by not receiving any cash. And then we have a cash flow, which is actual money flowing in and out of the business over a period. So actual money means actual flow of cash which is taking place. Cash is coming into the business. Of course, it could be in the form of cash. It could be in the form of bank transfer. It could be in the form of any other electronic transfer, but you are receiving money. Similarly, you are paying it in any other form, but if cash is involved, it is a part of cash flow. Then we have another term which is insolvency. So as you could see, insolvency is when a firm is not able to pay its short-term debts because it has run out of cash, even if it is profitable. Again, let's say Jivansh has made a profit of 200 today, but he has no cash and he cannot make payments to anybody, right? So yes, the business or whatever he has sold is profitable, but he cannot make the payments. And as a result of that, the business will be insolvent. And when you talk about liquidity, what happens under liquidity? It is the ability to convert current assets into cash quickly to meet short-term obligations. So very important. A business needs to be liquid, because unless and until my business is, liquid, I won't be able to succeed. Again, giving the example, I have 1 million to start a business, and what I did, I bought 50,000 ka machinery. The 50,000, I just I bought a land or something, or I just bought a land, and that's it. I can't run my business. My business is totally, it is illiquid. No money I have. So you cannot run a business until and unless you have this loose cash with you. Very important. And same happens with our household as well. We need cash to meet our day-to-day expenses. Similarly, business also needs cash to meet its day-to-day expenses, right? Okay. Now going to the next one. Now, cash flow forecast. Again, a question to you all. How are you with the cash flow? Cash flow is not that easy as it seems to. How many of you are like confident with cash flow? Yes, I know cash flow. I'm the master of cash flow. How many of you think like that? If you think like that, I have very challenging questions for you people. Okay, Riz has said that it is difficult for them. Who else? Fine. I got just one response, and they find it difficult. Okay, even Jivansh has said something. Let me quickly check what he has to say. Okay, for Jivansh, it is easy, right, Jivansh? As I have very challenging questions for cash flow forecast. Okay, all right. So let us just start with the common mistakes for the cash flow. Now, as you could see, uh, again, a very common question I want to ask, cash flow forecast. Is it any requirement for the businesses or the companies to submit the cash flow forecast, or why they prepare it? Is it required to submit a cash flow forecast to the government? Is it needed? Yes or no? Just write the answer. I will check it out. Anybody? Or if it is not a requirement, then why companies make it? What is the need for making a cash flow forecast? We are definitely not calculating profit through that. Then why we make it? No answers. Come on, people. Okay, very good. So Jivansh has said it is just for the future understanding, right? Yes. Cash flow forecast, as the name suggests, it is just a forecast. As you could see, it says it is just a forecast, not the actual thing. Yes, the companies, they do submit to the registrar, to the government, a document which is not a cash flow forecast. It is known as cash flow statement, which is the actual inflow and cash outflow transactions. Okay. Now, what is the purpose? Again, it says a financial document predicting future cash inflows and outflows, usually month by month. A structure. Now, whenever you are making the structure, again, remember there is a point rule for that structure. Five are mentioned there. One is heading. Always make one rule for any financial document, that heading is super most important, which we most of the time, we just forget. We don't put the heading, but again, I'm repeating, this is very important for us. So after heading, the rest of the structure, let me write it first. So my first important thing is that I will remember to put the heading, which could be cash flow forecast for first 6 months or first 5 months, whatever has been asked in the question. And then we have opening balance, right? Then we have total cash inflows, total cash outflows, net cash flow, which is inflow minus outflow, and then the closing balance. This is the entire structure of the cash flow forecast. Now, as we are towards, ending our DP2 and exams around the corner, those who have learned the format and everything, many times if you're practicing the past papers, so you may encounter that opening balance is written towards the end. You might have seen that opening balance is written towards the end. So children, don't get confused by that. That is the old format. Now we are using the new format, which says that opening balance should be at the first. Again, your IBDP guide, you will see it always starts with the opening balance. If you are doing past papers and looking into the marking scheme, and by chance you say that opening balance is written towards the end, please don't get confused. That's the older format. Whatever we have to do, we will do it as per the new format, right? Okay. Anything that would you like to ask? Please keep on writing it on the document. I will see. Okay, perfect. Now moving towards the next slide. That is again a practice question. Again, I'm not going to show the solution because I want you people to work on it. It says Pro Printing has an opening balance of 2000. Now, who will tell me what this negative signifies? What does, of course, I know bracket is a negative thing, but what does it signify? That opening balance of, minus 2000, what does it signify? Anybody, please write it on the chat. I want answer for this. What is this opening balance of negative 2000? What we mean by this? Of course, this is a cash balance, but it is a negative. What we understand by this? Okay, somebody said investment of 2000. All right. Anybody else who can answer this? Oh, Jivansh is privately messaging. Okay, Jivansh has also written something. Negative balance, Karthik, we know it's a negative balance, but I want to understand what it signifies. Okay, negative closing balance. All right. So now, yes, it is a negative balance. Now, again, a misconception to this. Whenever we have a negative balance, yes, we know it is a negative that we are not looking forward for. It means that we have taken overdraft from the bank in order to fulfill whatever obligations you had. Just understand it with this example. Let's say, um, a very simple example. Again, as I said, let's say I have 2000 rupees with me. Just understand it very carefully. I have 2000 rupees with me, and just in I went in a restaurant with my friends to have a lunch. I had only 2000, no bank balance, nothing, only 2000. Now, when I had a lunch with my four or five of my friends, the bill came around 3000. I have 2000, but the bill is 3000. So I have how much cash I'm short of? It is 1000, right? So, of course, you can say that my cash flow is negative 1000. How I'm going to fulfill this? Will the restaurant owner leave me without paying this money? Of course, he can ask me to wash the dishes. What else? If I don't wish to wash the dishes, what else I would do? Anybody? I have four of my friends with me. The bill is 3000 and I have only 2000. How I will overcome this extra 1000? Okay, I got some responses. Um, I could see the response is very good. I think again now Jivansh is messaging in the public chat. Yes, I will borrow it from somebody. Very good. I will borrow it. Tamanna has written overdraft. Wonderful. Yes. So overdraft, of course, I'm not a business. I'm just an individual, and I'm in a restaurant. I will borrow it from my friends. Ki okay, please give me 1000, maybe 500. Tum de do 500. You give. So this way, I will just try to manage up this 3000. So similarly, when businesses, they have lack of funds, they take borrowing from the bank, which is known as overdraft. So negative balance signifies overdraft from the bank, or in a way a short-term loan from the bank. So that is what it signifies. All right. Having discussed this, it says that Pro Printing has an opening balance of 2000 negative, that which is overdraft in Jan. Total cash inflows are 8,000. Cash sales 5,000 plus debtors 3,000. Total cash outflows are 9,000. Rent, material, labor, others. Calculate the closing balance for January. Quickly work on this. Hurry up. I want to see the answer. These are just the practice question. They are not going to come like this in your exam, so don't think about that. We will get a proper format and everything. No answers yet. Okay, I think I got some. Okay, somebody is saying negative 1000. Somebody has written it as negative 3000. We will check what is the correct answer. We are calculating the closing balance, and closing balance is calculated as opening balance plus net cash flow. Net cash flow is inflow minus outflow. Again, those who have done it, please again check it. I have not seen the answer. We will just see it together. Okay, perfect. I'll just move further and we will see what's the correct answer. Yes, the correct answer is negative 3,000. Those who have written negative 3,000, that's the correct answer. You can quickly see how they have calculated it. So net cash flow, inflow minus outflow, 1,000. Closing balance, opening balance plus net cash flow, which is negative 2,000 plus negative 1,000, which gives us negative 3,000. Again, taking overdraft from the bank of negative 3,000. Quickly check. So this is how we calculate it. Okay, now moving further and talking about the financial ratios. Now, financial ratios, something students, I have seen that when I introduce this topic, the students, they are very much relaxed. Why? Because they get to know that formulas they will get in the exam. But that's not the end of this story, friends. There is, of course, lot many things that we should remember. So, ratios, if you see, it is very important. Calculation will be easy because everything is given in the formula booklet. What is important is to how to analyze the ratio. So over here, of course, we need to look at the ratios, what my answer is. Then there is a possibility that we also are required to analyze this, right? Now let's quickly see what the slide has to say about it. So a ratio on its own means nothing. Yes, it has value when we do inter-firm comparisons, which means that you are comparing your result with that of a competitor, right? That is your inter-firm comparison. Trend analysis, compare the result with the business previous year. So what was the trend? Previous year, my profits were 25%. This year, my profit is 40%. So you are comparing it with your results with your previous organization. The so what factor explains how the ratio impacts the business strategic goals. Okay. Now we have profitability ratios. Remember, you must be, those who are attending, you must be HL, SL both. So for HL, we have some extra ratios. But for HL, for SL, we have the profitability and just a second. Yeah, we have the profitability ratios and we have the liquidity. Okay. So we have the profitability ratios, we have gross profit and profit margin ratio. Now they have also included ROCE ratio in this. With the new syllabus, we also see the ROCE ratio included under the profitability ratio. So I'll also write ROCE as well. Okay. Return on capital employed is also included under profitability as per the new syllabus. Earlier, it was a part of the efficiency ratio. So as you could see, gross profit. So yes, they have mentioned that gross profit upon sales into 100 and net profit before interest and tax by sales into 100. So yes, this is how we get the answer. Remember, every time whenever we are calculating the ratio, again I'm repeating, formula would be given to us, not an issue. I'm very happy. But how to analyze it, that is more important. Whenever I'm doing gross profit or net profit margin, remember there is something known as ideal, that what is the ideal ratio. Okay, we need to know what is ideal ratio, and we also need to know that this is what I've said, what is ideal. But of course, how to kind of understand, okay, this much percentage is ideal is also very important. When I talk about gross profit ratio, yes, since it is a profit ratio, higher will always be better. So higher is better. The more higher it is, better it is going to be. So higher is better. This is one thing. But at the same time, how much higher we are looking forward for. So in a normal organization, we say that if we are getting a gross profit margin ratio of 25% to 40% is considered as good. Gross profit will always be higher than profit margin ratio. So if I'm getting something around 40% to 25% is good. Why? Because from this further, I have to deduct the expenses, the taxes and everything. So 25 to 40% is considered as good for a normal business. Profit margin. In this case, of course, I would say that higher is always better. But what is this higher? Something above 10% to 20% is considered to be good. Okay, if a business is getting a net profit of 10% or something around 20%, it is good. Then we are going to the next slide. And then we have a practice question over here. So yes, the students, if you can quickly calculate, look into the values and quickly calculate this. I will wait for the answers. I'm waiting for the answers. All right, I have got some. Okay. Rather than waiting for more answers, I'll just quickly move further and see that what is the ratio. So as you could see, first we have to find the profit, which is 715,290, and then divide by revenue and multiply 100, and we will get it as 14.81. Everybody, please check, are we getting the same answer or not? If not, please quickly check in your working, correct it out. Yeah. Okay, I'm moving on to the next slide now. So this is 14.81 and we have calculated the profit margin, which I say it is good for a firm because I gave you the bracket over here that if you are earning something between 10 to 20% is considered as good for a net profit margin ratio. Now, again, we have another profitability ratio. As I said, ROCE, how we calculate it. So ROCE is first you take profit before interest and tax and you divide it by capital employed into 100. Now, what is capital employed? Of course, whatever money the business has invested into the business. So we have long-term liabilities, which are all the long-term loans plus share capital plus retained profit. If I put share capital and retained profit together, it is equity. So that is what my long-term capital employed would be. This is how we calculate the capital employed. And once I get the capital employed, I can get the profitability ratio. There is another method to calculate the capital employed, or you can check it by using that method, which says that total assets minus current liabilities. If you do total assets minus current liabilities, this also gives you the capital employed. This is another method of calculating the capital employed. You won't get it easily in your textbook. Just you can remember this because it is, of course, one more easy way to calculate capital employed. But otherwise, the capital employed is long-term liabilities plus share capital plus retained profit. And you could see that it says, yes, higher is better. Again, we know higher is better, but what percentage is which we can consider ki, okay, this is good. So of course, you can compare it from other businesses. You can look into your past trends, but mostly it is said that if you are getting something above 10% is good. I'll tell you why. Because if you just consider it that if you deposit this money into the bank, how much interest you have earned and how much your business is paying you. So something more than 10% is considered as good for a businesses. Okay. Then again, we have a practice question for this. We can, as we are running short of time, we will quickly see that they have mentioned net profit, non-current assets, shareholders' equity, and current liabilities. Calculate ROCE. So first, you will calculate total capital employed, which is total assets minus current liabilities. Okay, the same is over here in the example also. And once you deduct it, you get your capital employed, and then you can calculate the ROCE. So of course, profit by capital employed into 100. Answer is 13.08. Above 10% can be regarded as good for a business. Other factors are ceteris paribus over here. I'm not looking into the other factors. I'm looking into the result per se. Okay. Then liquidity ratio, surviving the short term, current ratio and the acid test ratio. So liquidity ratios are two, the current ratio and the acid test ratio. Very simple to calculate. Current assets minus current assets upon current liabilities, and acid test is current assets minus the stock upon current liabilities. And this measures the business ability to pay short term debts. And stock is tricky, yes. The when we do the acid test, we remove the stock because there is no certainty that a stock could be converted to cash. Debtors and cash, of course, we know that they are already, a debtor will be converted to cash and cash is already with us. So that is why we don't consider stock. Again, what is the ideal ratio? So if I talk about the ideal ratio for this, it is for current assets, mostly if we are getting our answer as, okay, so if we are getting our answer as, let's say, 2, something around 2.5 is to 1, or around, 1.5 is to 1. This is considered as okay for current ratio. Yes, more than this or less than this is alarming situation. For acid test ratio, 1 is to 1 is the ideal ratio. So ideal is also very important. Above that, before that, of course, we need to analyze it. That's how we can work on it and how we can improve on it further. And then we have a practice question. The same has been done. If you wish, you people can have a look at it. And moving further to the efficiency ratios, I think this we can cover afterwards. We have investment also, appraisal also left. But we are running short of time. So I'm just looking forward to cover this.